This is the sluggo, slant and go.
Casey the Beef Cregan, the most popular man in podcasting. You have done more podcasts this week than Joe Rogan.
I am pretty certain of it. Good Lord, man. And it's been nothing but enjoyable. I did one an hour ago.
Yeah, I watched part of it anyway. So I had to, do show prep. I had to use the Manscaped 4000 weed whacker to have 20% less, by the way. Hey, I know it's Wednesday. We always start off the show by saying, I usually say, I know it's Wednesday because, time to have my weekly date with Casey. Parker told me today, Dad, it's 6:00 and don't you need to go upstairs? But I also know it's Wednesday by this, Casey. My weekly mail from New Day USA Veteran Mortgage. And I'm going to approach them about being a sponsor, but as I told you before the show, even if I got a mortgage from these guys, I don't think they'd make any money because they have spent like $9,000 on direct mail to me, just to me, one a week for sure.
That's hilarious, man. They're those marketing gurus. That's how I got to Clemson. So maybe if you get the right one at the right time, then you'll buy. I don't know.
I don't know what kind of show this is going to be, but we've already, Palka's already chimed in the required amount of green cans to fully enjoy this show. He's 6 in plus an IPA. Let's do this.
Wow.
He's on vacation now, and I know
he's always on vacation, that guy.
It's only 6:30 here. It's not even 7:30, and he's 6 cans and an IPA in, so should be a rollicking show. Too bad we're not going to talk Notre Dame tonight. At all, but actually we will, Pauk, when we get to our guest here in just a minute and talk college football playoff. I wanted to chime in on my take about Notre Dame. Kevron checks in. I think it's going to be a fight for Kevron. I'm not sure who he's more of a favorite of, you or Houston. So
yeah, that's true. We always love seeing Kevron, though. Thank you for checking in from Cope.
No doubt. And speaking of our guest, I see he is in the house, and we'll bring him in here. It's the man with the wild and crazy beard, Houston. Your third time on the show. We're thrilled to have you on to talk college football tonight.
Is he muted? Can't hear him. That's on brand though. It's fine. But it's great to have Houston on. In that picture, it was so long ago on our open. He had the full beard. He's a little more clean cut now that he's a dad, and
yeah. Unfortunately, we can't hear you. Houston, if you want to try and reconnect,
try to reconnect. Yeah, see what happens. I heard something. There it is.
What about now?
There you are.
There we go. You hear
Houston
me
Burnett.
Okay.
We are professionals here, Houston.
Yeah, well, it's I had to unplug my computer the other day, and I try not to move it because the Mac that I have is a complete hunk of junk. And so I've had this since my senior year of college back in 2012 at Clemson. So it's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, a little more subdued attitude tonight. I have my 6-month-old teething daughter asleep in the room behind me. And so I don't think there's been a more brutal / like nerve-wracking time that I've ever had in my life than having a daughter that is like a time bomb. She could either sleep the entire time and we're going to have a great night, or it could be like last night where I was up till 3 a.m. and that's not fun.
Well, I saw a picture of you. I think you put on the book of faces that You looked a little tired, pal. You looked
Yeah, a little bit,
tired.
just a smidge. You know, I feel like my eyes are starting to make me look like the that character from Beetlejuice when they're sitting in the doctor's office, a little shrunken head dude. And at least that's just kind of how I feel a little bit.
Well, you know what you've got to look forward to, Houston? The projectile vomiting days and
That's already happening. That's already happening. We're getting into other projectiles happening.
that too.
Yeah.
Both my son one day we had to end up taking him to the emergency room, but I picked him up out of the car seat. He was like this close to me, and he's like, and I just stand there and take it, man. Just stand there and take it. So
yeah, grizzled vet. You gotta take once you vomit, pee, and poop. Once you have that trifecta, the holy trinity, you're a vet. You know, rookie hazing.
Man, I'd hate to be your barber, particularly if the vomit goes into the beer. Oh man, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, no, they find leftover things in there anytime I get beard trim.
It looks good now. It looks well kept, you know.
Yeah. Trying to a little bit more well kept, and we'll see. At least I don't look like a homeless guy. That's what I'm going for.
It might be a Hardee's biscuit in there or parts thereof, but that's all right.
Yeah, I can see that.
We didn't bring you on to talk about vomit or Hardee's biscuits, but that's the way it goes. We want to talk to you about recruiting to start off with, and college football in general. But let's talk a little bit about recruiting. Found out today that 2 of Clemson's targets from last weekend are one's going to announce tomorrow. That's Sherrod, and I'm not sure how you say this, Colville. I've heard it both ways. Colville. And Toriano, probably a little bit easier to pronounce. He is going to announce on Friday. Looks like these 2 guys are favorites to go to Clemson. I think they're both, between the 2 of them, there's about 6 billion crystal balls saying Clemson. I saw one Virginia Tech, but that was an old one for Sherrod. So what's your take on these 2 guys and the odds of it ending up being in the defensive backfield for Clemson eventually?
I mean, I would be surprised if they didn't. Generally, when you see candidates start shutting down their official visits after a weekend at a particular school, that's basically saying I'm going to that school. And Sherrod Coville kind of came on the scene a few months ago, and a lot of people thought that Clemson could swing him pretty easily. They just needed to get him on campus, and I felt like once they got him on campus, it was a done deal. I didn't realize he was going to commit this soon, but I knew he was going to be one of the earlier commits. With Toriano Pride, I think he's just been basically waiting to get on campus to commit. That's it. I think same kind of time frame as Sherrod Coville. People thought, it's not it's not if but when, and I think Friday is going to be the when.
So with this 2 guys that we perceive crystal ball coming to Clemson, what kind of impact do you think these guys are going to make? Not necessarily quick, but it seems that there's a lot of offers right now for defensive backs and safeties for the Tigers. And I mean, obviously there's a need, right? There's attrition there, but what kind of impact how do you feel about both these guys?
Well, I think it's great. And you're starting to see at certain positions that Clemson has not, I wouldn't say hasn't put an emphasis on. Clemson's put emphasis on the secondary or like offensive line or linebackers. They've always done that, but you've always seen kind of like a handful more of like developmental guys in certain positions. I feel like this is the first recruiting class that you can actively see that, 2 years in a row, you've seen Clemson's secondary get just obliterated in the playoff. And so they have to take that into account. You're still going to get the guys that nobody's really picked up on or anything like that. That's still going to happen, but it's a lot more concerted effort. The Toriano Prides, the Sherrod Covilles, the Jaden Lucases, and the Dalen Everetts of the world, they're going hard in after these guys. And the ones that you're picking up on, like say, might be a sleeper like a Jaron Knack. He could be placed anywhere. He's almost like I don't want to put him in a similar vein as Isaiah Simmons, but he kind of is in a way. A little bit of a different body type, but the emphasis is building speed in the backfield in your back 5, I guess you could say, or your back 6. Just so you can at least keep up with an offense that has the likes of a Chris Olave, Julian Fleming, or the just insane recruiting wide receiving class LSU had 2 years ago. That's what they're trying to do. And, I'm all for it. I think they may not see immediate impact, but having that depth there it's incredibly important.
All right, you've got your own fans already chiming in on the show. Houston, Bill Lanham says Houston live. Great, excited about the defensive backs lining up soon. And John Chansey says it feels like they want guys with secondary versatility, less emphasis on pure linebackers. So those two guys look like they're headed to Clemson. What's your take on Jaden Lucas and DJ Wesolak? We'll stop there and let you talk about those two guys.
Yeah, I feel similar about DJ Wesolak as I do the first two that we mentioned in Pride and Koval. Yeah, I think Wesolak was in the boat when they offered. Brent Venables has a tendency to have a few guys in the Midwest that get slept on. Maybe they only get a few offers from their home schools like Missouri and Kansas State and Kansas. But in the end, they don't get Clemson or Alabama offer. So that kind of offer, big deal. I think Wesolak is going to be in the boat. I like his size and his frame. I think he's the type of person that could develop. He could be the type of person that builds into a versatile position. He could shift him in, out, whatever. He does. I like his film a lot. And then with Jaden Lucas, I'm not going to say he's not in or out or anything. I still think Clemson leads with him. I think getting him on campus was a big deal and making him a priority. The last thing I think anybody on this coaching staff wants is Matt Brown coming in basically to your backyard and taking a corner from Malden. That's what Clemson does. We go to the backyard of UNC, take their players, but Clemson doesn't want that to happen. So I have a feeling that Lucas will end up staying. It's going to be a dogfight throughout the summer. But I feel like probably by the time we get to the beginning of the season, Lucas will be, I would expect to have this visit along with an all-in cookout invite as well. And we should be in pretty good shape.
Here's a question for you, Houston, too. Now, we know that these guys are very competitive with each other, right? This is a lot of DBs here. This is a lot of guys that want to be the guy and have been the guy forever. Does that go into effect now, especially if Koval and Pride do make the jump and commit this weekend? Does that hurt somebody like a Jaden Lucas that maybe start thinking I'm the third guy?
No, I don't think it's necessarily in that. Some recruits might, like if Lucas was somebody who had been in talks with, and say Lucas was from like Florida or something. But I think it's been abundantly clear from early on that Clemson's been interested in Jaden Lucas. And it's almost like if you see someone like Toriano Pride and Sherrod Koval commit, and especially if someone like a Dalen Everett commits, it's a new age to me where, hey, you can go play with some of the guys that in your competition. I know Lucas has met Everett and Pride in prior, camps and whatever. So these guys know each other. So building a relationship. So it could be seen as that. But ultimately, you want to compete with the best to get to the league and win championships. And so I think it could be a positive. Hey, I'm going to go play with some of the best, and we're going to go beat some of the best teams out there, and then I'm going to get drafted irregardless of whether I'm first or second string because we've got a loaded secondary.
Well, it sure hasn't hurt Ohio State if you're, talking about whether you're talking about defensive backs or wide receivers. And there's another guy on the list. Our list is out of order because I did the show prep here, but Keon Sabb is another one that's in the mix. What's your thoughts on him and Clemson?
If it was 2 months ago, I'd have been like, I don't think this is going to happen. But I really think getting him on campus was the biggest thing for him. You're already starting to see dividends. And I think, once again, kind of like Lucas, it's not going to happen overnight. I don't expect it. I think he either went to Penn State or he's going to Penn State. But he's got some other ones. I think Ohio State might be in the mix too. So he's got other places that he's going to visit. But I think, getting him on campus one time, and especially if you can get him on campus for the all-in cookout or like a game or something like that, I think Clemson's in prime position. Gave him something to think about. And I think especially with, you got Koval who can play safety, and you put him in multiple positions in the back part of that secondary. But Sab would be an all-star, the one of the crown jewels of a class that you could put him in multiple positions. I would probably say he's in the back end of the defense as one of those hard-hitting safeties. He's very athletic, very fast, and so you could sell him on that, and I think they have. So it's still a long way to go, but I think Clemson's definitely got a chance of landing this kid.
You said it. Get him on campus, and it's almost a blessing that Sab, a New Jersey kid, and unfortunately, a lot of New Jersey high schools play their football on Saturday afternoons. So Penn State has a large pull there because if they play it at noon and Penn State plays at 8:00, Jersey kids can get to that game. Thankfully, he's at IMG now, where they're going to be playing the traditional Friday night, so that he could possibly get on campus for a game on a Saturday afternoon. So that's almost a blessing that he it made that transfer. So that's going to be could be in benefit to Clemson.
Yeah.
Our guest tonight is Houston Burnett from the Morgan Thomas Show, and we're all really mellow. We do not want to wake up Houston's daughter. She may be able to hear me from Texas because Beef heard my wife sneeze 3 rooms away before we went live, my $1 million studio here. Okay, probably one of the bigger names that was on campus, just speaking name-wise, was Trevor Etienne. Now, Beef made the argument last week that the longer Etienne took to make a decision, the better the odds were for Clemson, not for the typical reasons you would think maybe, but for the reasons that other schools were filling up. Alabama had a commit last week from a running back from Baton Rouge, by the way. We know Georgia's got plenty of recruits, and Branson Robinson did not make it to Clemson last weekend. So that was kind of a sign that, okay, he's out. He's probably going to Georgia, I'm assuming. So Trevor Etienne, what's the late? Well, first of all, what's your take on him? I've heard varying degrees of we got to get him, or he's okay, he's not his brother. So what's your take on him, and do you think he ends up at Clemson?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, and I'll say this first: like, it's not fair to compare his game to his brother. They're two completely different running backs, both very athletic and both very talented in their own right. I think Trevor Etienne is more built a little thicker than his brother. He's not that his brother didn't run in between tackles, but I'm going to hand it off 4 or 5 yards at a time, and this is going to be a backbreak. He's almost like he's closer to Adam Choice in a sense that he's the guy who comes in, hammer, 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 and then he may break one off. And he's fast enough that he can do that. And I think that would be, for Clemson, it would be a good pickup. Obviously, Branson Robinson is a freak, and if Clemson was able to get him, I would take him. But Trevor Etienne, he's got Etienne in his last name, and he is definitely an athlete. And I think he would be a good addition, considering, by the time he's on campus, you're going to have a couple other running backs at Trite. So you would have a pretty solid backfield of, say, Kobe Pace, Shipley, and Maffa, and then, change of pace, backbreaker at the end of the game, Etienne, a different Etienne ripping off a big run. I like the sound of that. And I think as Casey said in the last show, that the longer it goes, the better it goes. I tend to agree, especially if you see Branson Robinson commit to Georgia or Alabama or wherever else he's going. I think they've zeroed in on him being the guy. And I think this would be a good first recruit for CJ Spiller to kind of hang his cap on, especially with what he's got in the pipeline for next class, which I think you'll see 2 running backs in that class.
Ooh, I like it. Yeah, I think, like you said, Houston, I don't think it's fair that people compare him with his brother, but unfortunately, that's got to linger, right? He's got to hear it at least, even from the random folks walking on the street around Tigertown. They're probably saying, "Oh, that's Travis's brother. That's Travis's brother." But yeah, he did come out and say that he wants to take visits, and he's going to be visiting all over the country, it seems, including obviously the hometown. But I think everything I've read has said it's basically probably going to come down to LSU and Clemson. Yeah.
All right. Guest is Houston Burnett from the Morgan Thomas Show. Now, the last recruit we'll talk about from last weekend for Clemson, figuratively and literally the biggest, Travis Shaw, another North Carolina Clemson battle, maybe Georgia. What's the deal with Travis Shaw? I knew he had North Carolina at A&T, or I think it was in his final group too, but that's not the way it's being portrayed. So
No.
tell us about Travis Shaw, both as a prospect and where you think he ends up.
I think it was huge once again for him to get on campus. It's easy for him to slide over for an official visit to Chapel Hill, not being that far from Greensboro. But now that things have opened up, they really poured into him coming on campus. You got Brian Brzee, Peyton Page is from Greensboro. They were in full force for Travis Shaw. Made him feel like he was a part of the family. And I think he bought back into it. And I think he got a little bit, of course he shied away from it because you couldn't come to campus. So UNC was right there talking to him. Georgia's probably going to make a push. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, something neck and neck all the way until whenever he decides to commit. I think he still ends up with Clemson. I mean, Clemson it's pretty hard to deny the pedigree that Clemson's been able to put in the pros from around the same time period as when Clemson's ramped up putting in wide receivers to the league. They put in defensive linemen, and I think that's going to resonate. It'll be tough. UNC is going to put their best foot forward, try to get him on campus as much as they can with him. But I think in the end, Clemson's going to win out. I think they're going to end up landing Travis Shaw.
Isn't there a relationship with him and Dexter Lawrence too? Isn't that been said, or maybe are they just equating the two?
They might be correct. I haven't read up enough on that. I know they're from quasi close. Wake Forest, the town, is somewhere up in that neck of the woods anyway.
Okay.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they've met, or at least maybe one time while Travis Shaw was on an unofficial before COVID or something like that, he met Dexter Lawrence or something. But it wouldn't surprise me.
I could be completely wrong.
I know for a fact it's Peyton Page and him know each other. That's the main person I know of.
There's definitely been comps of the Dexter Lawrence and the way that the recruiting is going. Dexter with NC State and now Travis Shaw with North Carolina.
Well, Houston, my next question was going to be, what's your biggest positive of the weekend recruiting watch for Clemson? But I'm getting the sense that it is getting players on campus. And I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it seems to be a common theme on all the recruits. And we've talked about it with JP Priester before and in other shows, that just getting these kids on campus has been a big positive for Clemson. Yeah,
no, you're right. Like Clemson having the recruits on campus, you kind of feel, especially now, in the past, Clemson hasn't been able to zero out exactly who they're looking for the rest of their class, but the all-in or the elite retreat kind of tipped their hand of who they're really going after. And I'm sure there's more. Clemson has a tendency as the year goes on past the all-in cookout to maybe hand out a couple more offers and positions they may be short at. And there may be some that JP mentioned last week that I would anticipate offers for going out as well. But that's the other part about it. It's not just getting people on campus. It's being able to evaluate on campus. You don't have to worry about relying completely on somebody's film. You actually have a chance to evaluate and maybe pick out a few people, maybe have a few, like we've seen, a few PWOs, kickers, stuff that's still very necessary for Clemson to pick up. And they were able to do that in one shot this past weekend.
All right. Was there any negatives besides Branson Robinson not making it and for all intents and purposes probably ending up at UGA?
Yeah.
Any negative other than that maybe out of the weekend?
This was all right. So this is one little nitpick for me, and this is just on me. I understand why they only offered Arch Manning. Don't get me wrong. He is filthy, and I love his film. But I would have liked to have seen them offer Nicholas Iamulava. That kid's a baller, and wherever he ends up at, he's going to be in the thick of it, whether it's at Oregon, hopefully not at Ohio State or Alabama or anything like that. Go to the West Coast so we don't have to help one of those teams. I wish Clemson had offered him. I feel confident that Clemson's in the thick of it with Arch Manning, going off of what I know, but he's very talented. And then the 23 class is very talented. And I'm not sure exactly who all came. I don't think Dylan Lonergan came up last weekend. If he's able to come to Clemson, they need to offer that kid. He looks like Sam Howell in his tape. It's unbelievable. And he's going to probably end up at either Georgia or Alabama. But, I would offer, and just in case Arch Manning does end up going to Texas or Alabama, you can offer one of those guys.
It seems to be the blueprint, though, recently, right? They did it with Trevor. They did it with DJ, that they're only going to offer the one quarterback. But I think, didn't Caleb Williams have an offer, too, from Clemson? And then
Caleb Williams, I think Clemson went all in on him. And once he decided to go to Oklahoma, that's when you saw offers go out for Bubba Chandler and for there was another offer, I believe. I can't remember. It was Coley. Coley was his last name, but Bubba Chandler was the one they zeroed in on that one after the fact. But you're right; they've been the blueprint lately, so we'll see.
Yeah, and with the way that Arch doesn't have social media, he doesn't really talk to people necessarily, give interviews, so you're completely in the dark. You could think that he had a great visit and really enjoyed it, and the family seemed to really enjoy the Sweeney family and being in and around Clemson. The next week he's having a great time at Texas in Austin. So you just don't know. And we have a phrase here that we tend to overuse called reading the tea leaves. And there are no tea leaves to read necessarily because we get so high in this stuff, and that's why it's so fun and not so fun all in the same breath, that you're putting so much stock in these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. And it is fun, but we have to always step back and remember they're 17, 18, 19-year-old kids,
Well, and the thing is I think Arch Manning's going to be shown a good time wherever he goes, right? Nobody's going to be a cheapskate when it comes to Arch Manning's visit. John Chansey, the good things I've heard about Klubnik make me comfortable with the slow play for Arch. And I'm going to be your correspondent for Cade Klubnik over the football season, because here those games are on TV every Friday night, Westlake High School. And I told Casey this back during the season, that they are produced by the Westlake students, and it's a higher quality production than the ACC network. Which, not the highest bar, but, it is really good. Now, a couple of guys, Houston, a couple of national guys I wanted to talk about, and if you're not familiar with them, that's fine. I just threw them on here because
I'm sure he's familiar with them.
Yeah, these are the two biggest. For me, the biggest news of the week is 5-star Michael. I'm not sure if it's Michael or Michael Williams, number 26 overall, a defensive lineman from Georgia, got away from the SEC and even the Bulldogs and ended up at Southern Cal, or committing to Southern Cal. And I said, let me do a little research. Yes, Casey, I did some research. And his half-brother plays for Southern Cal, so maybe there's a little bit there. But what about this guy getting away from Georgia in particular, but the SEC at large, and ended up in with a Pac-12 team?
If it was any other school, well, I won't say any other school. If it was Auburn, I'd be like, wow, they let this guy get away. I can't believe it. But Georgia, literally, when it comes to talent, it doesn't matter. They can go out and if you believe what Rush Probst says, I don't know if you've heard that audio. If you believe what Rush Probst says, they're going to be able to get a bag ready for anybody they want, at least in their state. So I'm not really Georgia talent wise. Does it look bad from an optics perspective? Yes, but in the grand scheme of things, they still have the number one class, or one or two. I haven't looked at the latest rankings, but they're still up there. They still have a ton of talent, and they're still going to be in the running for as many other defensive linemen as they want. Letting him go stinks, but in the long run doesn't hurt.
Yeah. One other guy I want. I think, we have two, but I'm going to stay kind of towards Clemson. But my guy that I really wanted on campus and to be at Clemson was the slot wide receiver from Texas, Brennan Thompson. I haven't heard much about him. Have you heard anything? Has the ship sailed? Do you think he's not going to be even coming to campus in the fall?
It's hard to say. When Cade Klubnik committed, it was like he was all in. Oh, I'm going to Clemson. That was pre-Sark being hired at Texas, I believe, or around that same
Right
time.
there, yeah.
Yeah, right around that same time frame. And Sark has really done a good job, at least with his first unofficial class, taking over, of trying his hardest to keep as much as he can within the area. And Brennan Thompson is one of those that they want to keep in. And I think that's why you saw the offer to Andre Green. I was a little surprised Clemson didn't offer Antonio Williams from Dutch Fork. I know JP had mentioned him last week or whenever he was last on. And so I think I won't say the ship has sailed, but it's kind of feeling like when you read the tea leaves, it's looking more and more like it's going to be Andre Green. And if they take another one, maybe Antonio Williams. But I think Brennan Thompson's going to be staying at Texas.
Break my heart.
Yeah, breaks my heart too, because I like those Texas guys at Clemson for obvious reasons. And what would talk about recruiting be without talking about a decommitment? Oklahoma lost a 4-star, number 114 overall wide receiver, Jordan Hudson. He's a 2022 guy, decommitted from Oklahoma today, and now they only have 36 wide receivers on that team, I believe. Poor Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar with Georgia, except with a specific position. Oklahoma produces, I mean, they're kind of like Clemson. They have just a ridiculous amount of talent there. And that could actually be one of those. It's like, look, do I want to be buried on a depth chart and get my time to shine? My last year or something, I'm going to dip out. I'm not sure where he's projected to go, but I don't think he's going to hurt Oklahoma, and it'll probably help him to go. I'm assuming he's probably from the area of Texas. I haven't looked at his profile yet, but I'd imagine that he's going to end up somewhere at a Texas school, TCU or Oklahoma State or something like that, and do just fine.
No doubt there. All right, our guest is Houston Burnett from the Morgan Thomas Show. We're going to change it up a little bit, Houston. We want to get your thoughts on the 12-team playoff. I have specific thoughts. I will let you as the guest go first, and just kind of your overall take, and is it good for Clemson or bad for Clemson, or just college football in its entirety, and what would you have done different?
Well, see, I'm in the minority. I'll answer what would I have done different. I'm personally of the ilk of we should have more. I know everybody over the age of 30 is like, ugh, more teams, it's the worst. To me, overall, as someone who's grown up I was born in 90, I've seen the BCS go to the playoff, or this little extra quasi BCS system where there was a championship game, a 14 playoff. But I also see the FCS produce a compelling product week after week. And I know that there's a little bit more. Well, actually, there's not as much parity as people think in that division. I mean, you had North Dakota State win 7 daggum championships in a row, and then follow that up with South Dakota State and Sam Houston State, who have played for national, or Sam Houston State had played for national title. So there's not as much parity as people think, but still very compelling. I think that the bowl model is very archaic. It was good for a time in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. But once the power conferences broke away from the FCS in 1978, I think it really missed the mark to make an actual playoff. If you wanted to do a 14 playoff then, sure, but we've evolved. There's 130 teams out there. People who complain about a 14 playoff but then go and sit and spend PTO from work to sit and watch a 64-team basketball tournament and a 64-team baseball tournament, it's a little bit hypocritical to me as far as what I can see. So I want to see more, but I think for the time being, this is progress. 12, I like it. The one knock that I have on the current system is get rid of the neutral sites, except for the national championship game. Just go off on campus. What it does is it incentivizes being in the top 4. So you might go, oh my gosh, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, Alabama, they're the only going to be in those 4. Yeah, it's potentially true, but also, you have other programs that are going to be fighting to get that spot. Notre Dame, Texas A&M could have had rights to being that top 4. It's really going to put a micro, just under the microscope of who deserves to host and have home field advantage, which I think needs to be the talk in the playoff. You aren't going to have that now. Like it doesn't add this level of intrigue that I think you could do, much like what the NFL does to increase intrigue in those final weeks of the season. Even the top 2 seeds have something to play for, not just a bye week, but who has home field advantage. And I think that's the only thing that I really feel missed the mark. I love the idea of 12. It's more seats at the table. It's a more diverse. It's not an invitational. You get on-campus games. I think for college football, it's going to benefit it. People are going to be like, oh, 12, I can't believe it. But as soon as the first kickoff happens in that 5 versus 12 game, you will have just as many viewers as you would have for a Saturday night primetime game because people are going to watch. And they know it. People are going to watch. I'm going to watch it. I'm super excited for it. I think from Clemson's perspective, it helps. Like, look at what Dabo's done, and people would say it diminishes the regular season. I really don't think it does for Clemson. You can't afford to really let up because you don't want to not have a bye week going into that second round, and then 2, you don't want to be fighting. If you're number 11 and South Carolina somehow has a resurgence and is number 13, you don't want to be fighting for that last seed also to end up having to go to Kyle Field or Notre Dame or Oklahoma or wherever in that first round and have to play your way out of there in that first round. So it incentivizes Clemson to stay on top. And I see John Chauncey there. That's why he's my photo on my Twitter page. And so, that's where it's at. But I think overall is good for everybody. I think the people that hate it, you'll see, you'll see people who hate it eventually like it. I don't think anybody who doesn't like it now is going to like it when they inevitably in 20 years go to 24 teams because that's what's going to happen. But it's getting to the right place where we should have been decades ago.
One thing I was thinking too is that you're still going to have the argument, right? It's never going to end who should be number 13 or now number 5. And ESPN plays it up and the committee plays up 5 versus 6. They play it up every year, right? They're going to play up 13 versus 14 because that argument is just never going away, especially once you throw in the group of 5 and trying to figure out who is deserving of that. This past year would have probably been Cincinnati and maybe a Coastal Carolina. But 12 is great. And just like Houston said, who is a very tough act to follow, and I agree with John Chancey, but you're going to watch. You're going to watch. So I see zero negative with it. And as a Clemson fan, it feels like you have more opportunity to be there. But you're right, especially the run that they're going on. You definitely want to be one of those home teams in the second round if they actually decide to do that instead of going with
honestly, and I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
the other thing is I would honestly be okay being 5 through 8. That means you get one extra game in Death Valley as a 5. Could you imagine a playoff game in Death Valley and they're playing, I don't know, if they're a 5 seed, let's say they're playing like Oregon, or if they're playing, think about how hype it would
12,
be.
Right?
Yeah, or if you have a 5-12 and Coastal Carolina is your group of 5 team. That's going to be electric. It's going to be more electric than South Carolina coming. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, at least the last 20 years of South Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael Palkovic says regular season will have value. Those top 4 spots will require teams to play every week. Don't disagree with your Palk. And Houston Herd 5 foot nothing with beef. Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here just a little bit. I'm not against 8 teams in the playoffs. One thing I did want was, while there's still value in most of these regular season games, undoubtedly some of them will lose value. The example I provided was, say Oregon is 10-1, and they've wrapped up their division, and now they're playing 7-4 Oregon State. And to get into the playoff, all Oregon has to do is win that championship game. And not get their quarterback hurt against Oregon State, for example. Now, who knows, where the rankings will end up and if they'll lose a home field advantage if they lose that game to Oregon State, which is what Pauk said. They're going to win. They're going to want to win to Oregon State because they may lose home field advantage. That could happen. Or it could not make it. Maybe it doesn't make a difference. I'm saying undoubtedly there'll be some regular season games that would matter today that won't matter in the 12-game scenario. And, I'm okay with that. They're going to lose a few. But when you get to 24 and 36 and 48, there's going to be tons of them. The problem I have is that when, as human beings, we start expanding things, whether it's taxes or tournament participation, it never stops. We're never happy, right? You guys said it. When there's 24, number 25 is going to be pissed. When there's 48, number 49 is going to be pissed. It's never going to end, and they are going to expand to death. The on-campus thing. How many people are going to be there? What are you talking? The second, third week of December around Christmas? Students are gone home. Are they all going to stay? Is it going to be the same? There's drawbacks here. And the biggest drawback I saw, I thought it was going to happen in the 18 model. I did the numbers. It didn't appear to be. But again, they could re-rank those teams in this new model. The SEC is going to end up with 6 or 7 teams in this playoff. And there's going to come a day where the Final Four is going to be Alabama versus Florida and LSU versus Georgia. There's going to be 4 SEC teams in the final. Mark my words, you're going to get 6 or 7 teams in some years.
So there's a couple of and respectful disagreements. Oh, I wouldn't say disagreements.
They don't have to be respectful.
Yeah. So yes, there is a possibility that if 10-1 Oregon wants to mess around, not start a quarterback, do whatever kind of crap, whatever, and lose a game to Oregon State. That's very possible. But I also think of it this way. All right, you are number 11 North Carolina, and you are fighting for your first bid. You now have to go to a primetime matchup with number 13 NC State, who is looking also for their first playoff matchup. Where you may lose it in the upper part, you're gaining in people who are trying to fight and build their programs. A lot more intrigue. A lot of programs like I was watching it. Honestly, it wasn't a documentary, but it was like a documentation of the 2007 season, and we all remember how awesome it was because it was
Craziest one ever.
Yeah, it was just teams that you're like Kansas and Missouri and USF and West Virginia, and those teams have vanished. But now all of a sudden they're back in it, and they have a little bit more intrigue. You get a lot more intrigue at the end of the season, and so yeah, you may lose a little bit at the top, but the back end of it is going to be really fun to watch. The second part of it that I think of, and I understand your gripe as far as expanding too much. I think there is always a point where you need to stop. Okay. No one's complaining about who's number 69 in the NCAA tournament. And it's sort of, it's kind of, when it comes to, it's a bubble for a reason. And some people question that and some people don't. But at the same time, it's like if you're number 75 or something like that, and you're middle of the pack in the ACC and you don't do enough and you get yourself in that situation, unless you really have a strong end of the season, most people are going to go, I get it. Same with baseball, same with most of the other sports. I think the closer you get to the range of 24 or 32, which I'm not necessarily advocating for 32, but I'm just saying if it ever went that way,
right,
I think that's the end. You can't go any more than that. You can't expand it to 48. You can't do anything like that because then it does diminish that. Go ahead.
I'll just say this one thing and let Beef talk. Sorry for jumping in, Beef. But Yes, they do expand that. Remember, first it was first four out. Now it's next four out, and now it's next four out. And they expand the next four out. So anyway, Beef, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you didn't cut me off. I have nothing more to add. I'm just enjoying listening to Houston wax poetic here.
Yeah, well, how we have such a well-reasoned arguments. I do realize that there's going to be, I'm just saying today, every game's important in the regular season. There's going to be some that aren't important. And the more you expand this, the more that become less important. And I actually think, and Michael Palkovic is watching Palk, and we're going to talk about Notre Dame here. I think the biggest loser in this is Notre Dame. You mentioned something. And the reason I say that is because they're never going to be in those top four. They're never going to get a bye. While playing 4 games gives you an extra game, it also reduces your chances of winning the national championship. Now, theoretically, I ran the numbers for Beef and Pauk last night. So theoretically, if you have a 50% chance of winning every game, which you won't, but just for argument's sake, it doubles, it reduces your odds by half. In other words, if you got to play 3 games, you got a 12.5% chance of winning it. If you got to play 4, it goes down to 6.25. So just by the virtue of having to beat another highly ranked team, top 12, it's going to cut your chances of winning the championship in half. So, Palk, I'm here to tell you it's going to be 20 years before Notre Dame wins another championship.
Well, and for Notre Dame, I do agree that they took kind of the worst part of the deal. Now, I see 2 sides of this coin. I see on one side, they look at this and they're like, we don't have to join a conference. We're going to be in the top 12 probably most years. They'll be in the top 12. And if they're in the top 8, they get another home game. And look, I know that you think that some people may not go. Some people are the students going to be there. I would go in a driving snowstorm right now, shirtless, to a Clemson game.
Okay, I'm out.
Yeah,
I want to see that.
Yeah, I would do it right now, because when we were talking last year with all the COVID stuff, we were like, are they going to play in the spring? I was like, I'll go to a February game. I mean, I couldn't because of the baby, but I'd go to a February game. I would do that, and that's what I think a lot of people will do. Their rationale is like, people are going to show up to Notre Dame if they have a home game. People are going to show up. They're going to pack the stands. They're going to have an extra game on NBC for that because it's going to happen. That game would be on NBC. They get more TV revenue. So it works out in their favor. Or the flip side of it, which, no. And I think the flip side of it is I think Clemson, or I say Clemson, the ACC has a little bit more leeway to reel them in. I think in the end, what this is going to do is create conference realignment. And I've waxed poetic on that for years as far as what you could do. And I think the ACC opened the door that could happen. Now, current agreement, I don't know what's going to happen, and they may not. But I think, they may go a couple of years and be like, you know what? We kind of do want to have a top 4 seed. And I think we have a door that we can enter to do that. And this opens the door to that. So it might take a while. Notre Dame might struggle with it, but hey, we'll see.
I said it the other day when I talked to Palk. He's got a 5'0" 100 podcast out there, and that it's not necessarily anti-Notre Dame, this sentiment. I think it was just the whole Power 5 conferences coming together as a group, united to put together a proposal. I truly don't believe that it was a slight, an intentional slight to Notre Dame. Now, I could be wrong there too. I just think because you have teams like Liberty who are on the come up, especially with Hugh Freeze, and they're going to be in the same boat if they happen to get a top 5 spot, if they go undefeated and something happens, all chaos takes place and they end up in the top 4 ranking. Well, they're not going to be able to get that ranking either because they didn't play a conference championship game. So I think it feels like to me, because I'm always trying to think of, no, they're not slighting you, this is how it is, that it was everybody putting together a concerted effort together, and these are the groups that are together. The Power 5 and the Group of 5, they're actually in conferences. So, yeah, and it might be a screw you to, hey, join a conference, and to all those teams that aren't in one.
Could be.
Maybe.
And I don't think Notre Dame, this is Notre Dame's test to join a conference or not. I think this is it, right? You could join if they're the best team in the nation, clearly undefeated, if they don't give up a point all season and beat it by 50-0, they're going to be fifth seeded. And Notre Dame, Pauk is saying, well, that's great. We'll have a home game. And I'll say, well, yeah, in that scenario. But in another scenario, you may be playing in Oregon. You may be playing at Clemson. You may not get a home game, and you may have to play 4 road games and try and win the championship. Good luck to Notre Dame. Hey, our guest is Houston Burnett from the Morgan Thomas Show. We're only going to keep you a few more minutes, Houston, but let you, hopefully your daughter stays asleep for about 5 more minutes, but let's change, or 5 more hours for you. But
yeah.
Let's change up a little bit. I wanted to talk about Clemson baseball because I saw on the old interwebs this week, he's going to start screaming, Casey, and his daughter's going to wake up. I wanted to talk about Clemson baseball for a minute, and I saw on the internet the other day that Monty Lee is not going to make any staff changes. I think I saw some tweets from you back at the end of the season. I think I know how you feel about this, but let the folks out there listening and watching, let us know how you feel about Monty Lee returning to Clemson and no staff changes.
I will say this. If you know how I feel about Brad Brownell, you know how I feel about Monty Lee.
That's what Casey said, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, it's at the point now where Clemson in one of those 2 programs needs to rip the Band-Aid off, especially in baseball. It's getting to the point now where we're like, we just need to make a regional. It's like, no, that's never been the goal. Regional is not the goal. And now we're not even making a regional. We can't even do that. There's got to be some changes in the offense, and it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. There's no confidence really. Like, this is what I don't understand. The team looked like it had turned the corner in spring of 2020 pre-pandemic. Like, I looked at that roster, I looked at the pitching staff, I looked at the way that they were becoming more and more comfortable hitting at the plate, and it was a complete different team. They weren't just swinging for the fences. They were actually putting the ball in play. They were hitting their strikes. They had a great pitching staff. And to me, when the pandemic happened and I looked at that team, I was like, that team had the depth at pitching and a talented lineup to go to Omaha. I thought that team could do it. So coming into this year, I thought to myself, okay, yes, Clemson has lost Weatherly, they've lost Strider, but they still have this bevy of talent, and they've gotten Caden Grice, and they've got all these players coming back, and Kiera Meredith is coming back. So I think Clemson could make a super regional, and that should be the expectations, to make a super regional at bare minimum. And to go out like this, to have their first losing season in 64 freaking years, that's inexcusable. Like, it's one thing if he made it to another regional and they lost, went 2-3, lost to Jacksonville State again, whatever. But you lost and you didn't go to the tournament. And not only that, I pointed this out to the boys on the show. Clemson, with the teams entering the super regionals in the ACC, was 6-3. They swept Virginia. They took 2 out of 3 from NC State, and both of those teams are going to the College World Series. How is that happening? Clemson used to be feared in baseball. They used to be a team that you didn't want to end up in a regional with or super regional with, because there was always a Jeff Baker or a Khalil Green or a Michael Johnson or an Andy D'Alessio or a Tyler Harbin or Tyler Colvin. Taylor Harbin, Tyler Colvin. I had a Tyler Colvin shirt from the Cubs.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so like they came through, and it's just that's kind of lost out. And I think right now, especially, I've been actually keeping up with a lot of the college baseball coaching changes, because there are coaches out there from Jack Leggett lineage that I think if Clemson made an offer for, would come and could actually turn it around. You'd have to pony up a little bit to do that. But I think there are coaches out there that would come to Clemson and be happy to do that. But you just got to pull the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of. I'm not a guy. I'm on record many times saying I'm not a guy that likes to call for people to lose their job ever. But I told Marty on many occasions, and I've been on record to say, it's if he gets another year, which apparently he is going to get another year, that staff in the dugout was going to be completely different. So when the news came out that he was not going to have to change any staff, my next thought was, well, next year is it, because Radakovich, this is it. Monty obviously said to Radakovich, the AD, like, I got it. This is the group. I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it better. Radakovich said, all right, I'm going to give you one more chance, and that's it. Because I think next year, if the same type of season comes and they don't get a regional or a super regional, I'm not even saying hosting, but like you said, the bare minimum of super regional, I think the house gets cleared, and then they are going to have to pony up some money to get somebody to come in here and fix it. And I talked to a recruit. He's signed. He's ready to go, but he's a rising senior. He's going to Clemson. I talked to his parents the other day, and I said, "What are you hearing? What are you thinking?" And they said, "We love him, but he loves Clemson, so he's still going to come to school." He's a highly touted kid, so I'll keep his name off of this for the time being. But highly touted kid out of New Jersey. He's a shortstop here, but they think he'll play third base at Clemson because they just signed a very good shortstop from in-state.
Well, here's what I'll say. I really had high hopes for Monty Lee. I was happy with the hire. I had some conversations. I told Casey a couple years ago with Monty, I'm pulling for him. I want them to do good, but when you have somebody who's followed Clemson baseball like myself for almost 40 years, right? Longer than that, actually, way back before I was at Clemson and in high school and as a little kid, and I start turning the games off, I mean, that's a sign, right? Yeah. That's a sign. That's when I said, when, we were making plans for Saturday, I would usually say, well, the game's on at whatever time, so let's go to early lunch or whatever to the wife. This year I was like, yeah, sure, we can go. Whatever time you want to go, because, there's going to be guys on second, third, nobody out. They're not going to score any runs, right?
Yeah. And, and I'll say this too regarding Monty Lee. There are people out there that I see, like, there's a couple of things that I feel like Clemson fans need to stop saying. One, if you're saying, we've hired Jack Leggett for this, go ahead and show off that you were wearing garnet in 2010 through 2013. I know that you were doing that. Jack Leggett had kind of lost his soul. Ray Tanner took it from him in Omaha in 2010, and he never recovered.
Never the same.
It never was the same, and it needed to be done. So you can't blame Dan Radakovich for that. And then I went through a list of candidates of who they were looking for in 2016 when they went after Monty. And I mean, a lot of the Jack Leggett-esque guys, they were at their peaks, and Clemson's brand wasn't what Clemson's brand is now that's been elevated from the football team. You couldn't go out and be in a serious contender with Jim Schlossnagle or Kevin O'Sullivan or Tim Corbin or anything like that. And then I looked at some of the other assistant coaches. It's like nobody's really getting up for Maryland's coach, and Eric Bakich hadn't become Eric Bakich yet. Monty Lee seemed like the guy. He had just gone to Tallahassee, hit a bunch of bombs. They'd gone to the super regionals. They looked really good, and everybody was excited. And for a year, it seemed like absolutely the best decision. And then it's kind of slowly gone down from there. So, you can't blame Radakovich for either decision on this. It's just next year's got to be it.
Agreed, 100%.
Me too.
All right. Hey, Houston, last thing I'm going to touch on here is College World Series. Vanderbilt, Arizona, Stanford, NC State, Texas, Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Virginia. Who you got?
Give me Texas.
Ooh.
Pretty clear cut, Casey. There's no equivocation there. He's taken the Longhorns, which will make my life miserable if they win, because I will hear about it at work, on the phone, around the neighborhood. The flags will be flying. Oh, boy.
I would take them over the Vandy Whistler every day. I just want him to suffer in Omaha. So that's all I'm asking for.
That's an excellent point.
Well, let me tell you this, too. The recruit that I was talking to, his parents, he has a brother that pitches for Vanderbilt. So he pitched in that Leiter game the other day. So it might give it away if you know who pitched after Jack Leiter the other day. But, Yeah, and I asked them. That was my second question after the Clemson question. Was what do you think about the Whistler? And they both said, "Oh, we hate him."
Oh, I had a quick story there. When they came the first time, and it was Kyle Wright. We were in the outfield stands, me and my wife and a couple of our friends sitting next to a Vandy baseball player from old, who just kind of on a whim with his wife came down to Clemson. They loved it, but we were sitting there, and it's the first time I heard him. The first time I heard the Whistler, and I couldn't focus on the game because of this stupid whistle. And I asked the player, I was like, "What do you think about him?" He's like, "I hate this guy." And every Vandy fan hates him too because he ruins not just these sporting events. Apparently, he goes to all of them and does that. And so he's like, it ruins for everybody. Everybody hates him.
You can't unhear it. Once
No,
you hear
really
it once,
can't. Once you hear it, it's done.
Because I was living in Greenville at the time, so I went down to both of those years in the regional, and when it was 3 of the same team, St. John's was the other team, and I didn't hear it initially, and then all of a sudden you hear it once, and it just stays in your head the entire game. You can't unhear it after that.
Mm-hmm.
John Chansey's in with NC State as his pick. Boy,
I love it. They're hot right now.
They
Our
are.
defense got them rolling. They beat Arkansas. Why not? That's a good pick.
Yeah.
No doubt. All right, Houston, thank you so much. By the way, Houston, I know you guys have been doing some recruiting videos. Is that going to continue through this summer? And when does the Morgan Thomas show come back on live so Casey and I can make fun of you guys?
Yeah. So we are doing more recruiting videos. We've taken a few weeks off. Like all three of us had vacations spread out through the month of June and the end of May. So we'll probably start back filming our videos next week. Our plan is to go back doing a show in the fall, around like a few weeks before football season. That way we can really get the juices flowing for that. But more updates. There's plenty of stuff going on. Check us out, and we'll have plenty of content for you.
Yeah, we definitely miss you, but your stuff on YouTube is really, really pretty good. So tell the boys we said hello, and we look forward to your live shows.
Hey.
Definitely.
No doubt. We appreciate your time, Houston, with your sleeping baby daughter in the room next door. Go make sure she's still sleeping. I guess we'd know if she wasn't, right? And we appreciate your time. And this is the most coherent conversation I think we've had in the 53 shows. So thanks so much.
No question. There's no question.
Yeah. Well, I guess my sleepy brain has been able to subdue me, I guess. I don't know. We'll see.
You were fantastic. Thank you, pal. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Houston.
it.
We'll
be in touch.
All right. And Bill Lanham said he enjoyed the show. Well, please
Thanks,
come back, Bill. We're more than Houston. Houston was great. Fantastic stuff, Casey.
He always is. He always is. We love him.
I like the mellow Houston. He was just laid back, and it made us laid back. There wasn't much screaming and yelling, and I'm the one who did most of it.
But he had a lot of great things to say, man. He was lulling me not into a sleep, but he just filled my mind with information and things to think about, and it was really great. He always is. He always delivers. He's fantastic and a friend of the show, and we appreciate him a lot.
No, he's always willing to come on and talk to us and make us look much better than we are. We certainly appreciate that. Hey, tomorrow, Casey, I'm going to publish something on selfnewsreserve.com. It's regarding the transfer portal because nobody can go 5 minutes without talking about the transfer portal. And the website's going to be a work in progress. It's not completely done, but I'm going to have a page for this show, and there's going to be a page where you spread the word about other podcasts like 5 Foot Nothing, 100 Nothing, the 365 College Football Guys, and whatever other shows that want to be on there, just kind of to help folks out and get some views maybe or listens, but it's not going to be a regular thing, but just somewhere we can put stuff. If you have a urge to write something, feel free.
Yeah, I think when my life calms down a little bit, I'm absolutely going to spend some time writing. But right now, it's a little bit helter-skelter in my
14 or 15 years, maybe. But anyway, I'm going to publish something. I'll put it out there on social media. It's going to be about the transfer portal, and you may be surprised about this, or you may not, Casey. But did you realize that less than half of the quarterbacks that have entered the transfer portal have found a home?
Ooh, I'm not surprised at all. And I did see, I actually looked the other night before I went to sleep at how many are still remaining and some of the schools that they're coming from. And I don't know how many jobs that are left or how many jobs they're actually going to land. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Yes, I looked at that and it made me sad that these guys are giving up scholarships. University of California had 3 guys leave.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of them, or maybe one of them, has gotten another school. So
they're not going to start, right, at this point, unless there's an injury somewhere. They're not going to start.
And I'm a transfer portal guy. I believe in it. It's a good thing. It's not a good thing for everybody, and it doesn't mean you should just use it because it's there, because you're giving up scholarships to Cal and Vandy and wherever else for you're being sold a dream that's not always ends up being a dream. That's what I'll say about that. So SeldomUsedServe.com tomorrow. I'll put it out on social media. I would ask you what is going on with the chop and beef, but I heard. So, but what is happening with the chop and beef?
Yeah, we had a good show before this show. So I've been talking. Thankfully, Houston talked a good bit, so it kind of saved my voice. But we had a show earlier tonight because I was selected to be the All-Star Game umpire for the 35 and older men's league wooden bat league tomorrow night. So we tend to only do Thursdays, but we had to kind of switch it up this week. But same old antics, same old crew. JJ Locke's telling stories.
Cool. We got a couple of notes here. First from Kevron. Let me go back there. Houston Burnett is a godsend. Wow. He's getting the love. He needs to come on more often, man.
Yes,
he doesn't get this kind of love on the show he's on every week, I don't think. And Bill, this shirt is for Houston. I wear it every time he's on. He's been on 3 times, and that's why I wore it. And probably didn't know I've even got the Houston Astros hat on. So we appreciate Houston so much for coming on. Casey, would you close it up while I find the exit here?
Sure. Thanks so much to everyone in the Facebook group, especially Nelson Wilhite for all his help and support, everyone on the Sluggo podcast, Seldom Used Reserve page, each and every one of you who listens, likes, and shares and participates. We appreciate all of you, John, Bill, and everybody Kevron, everyone that commented tonight. We truly appreciate it. On behalf of Marty, Seldom Used Reserve Coleman, I am Casey the Beef Cregan. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
New Day Veteran Mortgage, our sponsor, come heck or high water. Appreciate it, Beef. Talk to you next week, bud.
Yes, sir. Take care.
I think we're done here.